another very, very, very large speaker comparison video. So my channel has seen a lot of these, and they become quite popular over time. It's pretty much when I just compare a bunch of my speaker drivers. And as you can see, I have a whole ton of them, sort of around the room, like that. And the reason I'm doing this is I have some new speakers that I haven't showed you. I haven't showed you some speakers in some time, in quite a long time, so I thought it was about time to do one of these videos. And it's probably been a year since I've done one of these. Now, I'm gonna first, before I tell you what we have, I'm just gonna tell you, we do have categories here. We've got tweeters, which are these speakers, to there. We've got small full ranges. We've got the mid-bass drivers. We've got large full ranges that I wouldn't quite call woofers. We've got the woofers. We only have 3 of those today. And we've got a whole ton of different sized subwoofers. A lot of those. More than the full range drivers, in fact. And I just want to check something. We also have more of these than we have mid-bass drivers for the first time. So, let's start. Okay, so how I'm going to do this is first I'm going to tell you what the speaker is, and then I'm going to play music on it. This is an Onkyo tweeter. It's actually from the box right behind it. As you can see, it has a pretty clear sound with a, it's got the nice hi-hat sound. It does lack the high vocals though, but that's sort of something that we see a lot in tweeters of this size and this type. Now let's move on to the next tweeter. This one is a Yamaha tweeter. Let's do it. See, that one's actually louder, and it's got more of a crispness to it. It's probably better than that Onkyo was. I'm not going to do as much pausing the video, but it is easier to do that with these tweeters. I'm probably going to... For the woofers, I'm just going to leave it as one steady video. Anyhow, this tweeter right here is a Sony. I know it's hard to see because... I have it zoomed in for the tweeters, but this one's actually got a blue cone. Let's test it. Very similar, maybe a tiny bit more tinny. Now let's go on to our next tweeter. So the one that you can see that's hooked up is a Polk Audio Soft Dome. It's from their speaker, the T15. Very common bookshelf speaker from Polk Audio. Let's test this one. Probably gonna move that back. Now, that one, it's definitely louder. It definitely produces more mid-range. Now let's move on to our next one. Now, this is a Paradigm tweeter from the Titan 3s. I'm sure you've heard of them. They're a pretty common speaker back in the day, but they were a high quality one. Let's test this tweeter. It's a hard dome, so it's some sort of plastic or aluminum. I don't know which one it is. Let's test it. Very similar to that Polk in that it produced quite a bit of mid-range, but I think we actually got a lot higher definition on that one too. This one has got an actual cone. It's an old one from the 1980s. It's from, what's it, a Realistic. That's what it's from. What model is that? A Nova 5? I think that's what it is. Let's test this one. And we've got that again. We've got a little bit less definition. It's more like that Polk one. Now let's test the last one. Now what this is a KLH tweeter. This was featured in my last speaker comparison video. And it's the oldest one. It's the oldest tweeter I have from 1972. Now let's try out this one. Now, it's definitely different. More of a mid-tweeter, if you ask me. Now, we're going to move on to the next category. Okay, so what these are full-range drivers. These look a lot like tweeters, actually. But the main difference is that the tweeters were closed off on the back, like that. They didn't have any opening to the box. These ones are open on the back, so they actually produce bass as well as treble. And a lot of these actually produce as much bass as some of the bigger woofers. And you know what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to bring up the bass and bring down the treble, and it started playing on me. I'm probably going to turn up the bass actually with these, and I'm going to let's go with these. As you can see, I've actually got some cone movement with this one. And I forgot to tell you, that one's from a Sony extra bass Bluetooth speaker. Now let's move on to the next one, which is a Bose Cube driver, an Acoustimass. I'm sure you've heard of that. If you haven't, that's okay. Anyhow, it's another full range driver, but it's actually got quite a bit of treble to it. Yeah, let's do this one. We're definitely starting to get into the bigger stuff. It's definitely louder, produces treble very well. Although, I've got to say, it didn't produce bass as well as even that small Sony did. Now let's move on to the next one. It also happens to be a Bose, but it's from a set of Bose computer speakers. It was also the only driver in them. Sort of like that. And this one, well, let's test it and see how it sounds. Definitely more like the Sony driver over there. Than the Bose, the other Bose. Let's go on to this. This is the last small full range of of these, and this is actually a JVC, believe it or not. It's from quite a large speaker, and it It's one of the speakers that has the super woofer built in. Let's see how this one sounds. You know what? Surprise! That one's actually the most efficient out of all of them. And it's actually got the tightest response out of all of them, too. It's really quite a bummer that they put in a really, really small white plastic box inside of the big, giant speaker box, because there was another speaker driver in behind it. Now let's move on to our third category. So, this time, it's our mid-woofers, and these are actually, believe it or not, arguably the most common type of speaker that you see. Let's test our first one. This is a Yamaha. Oh, a little bit too loud. There we go. Yeah, that Yamaha has quite a bit of excursion, but if you drive it too hard, it'll make that weird, sound that you heard. This one, this is an Onkyo driver out of, white speaker box. It's another, surround sound speaker. Actually, no, it came from, micro, system. One of the little micro all-in-one systems. Let's test this one. Again, got quite a bit of excursion, but again, watch the volume. It doesn't produce as much mid-range as the other ones. Honestly, not the best. Let's take a look at this JVC unit. As you can clearly see, it actually has good bass for the design, being a folded cloth. This is a Polk Audio T15 driver, a very, very common bookshelf speaker. These are everywhere. Let's test this one. Pretty good for mid-bass, but it's got a little bit of some hollow mids to it, and you really sometimes you notice that even when it's inside the box. It's a Paradigm woofer, mid-woofer, from a Titan 3 speaker, the same one that hard dome tweeter came from. 6.5 inch. I do like the sound from this one. Let's see how it sounds. Oh, my foam. Oh, I see what was going on. My other speaker was rubbing against it. That sound is not noticeable when it's inside the box. That's the Paradigm. It actually sounds pretty good. And you know what I bet you that noise is? Is actually my refoam job. It's a new foam surround, and sometimes that can cause that noise. So let's move on to our next category, because we're already on to another category. This is a little bit of a weird one, but we're back to full range drivers. The reason why is these didn't really fit in with the rest of the full range drivers, because they were a lot larger, but they were still the only driver in their box, or would be the only driver in the box. I'm gonna take out the bassy EQ, and just play these flat. This is an old Jensen speaker back when they were made in Chicago in the 60s. And it is actually a full range driver, even being 8 inches in diameter. Let's test it. very efficient. That's the same volume. Got quite a range for a large speaker. Okay, that's powerful. I actually wasn't thinking I would get any excursion from that, as in movement of the cone, but I was wrong. I actually got quite a bit of it. For the type of speaker, I mean, that's a folded paper surround and it's quite fragile. That's about the maximum excursion I would put on it. Now this one looks trashed, but it isn't. It's glued together on that side. It's a guitar amp speaker. Honestly, this is still a full range driver, even though it's probably the biggest driver in this collection. I've got a subwoofer that is the same size though. Now this is a 12-inch. It's an Eminence speaker, custom designed for a guitar amp company called Blackheart. And let's test out this speaker. Already not quite as efficient as even that small little Jensen. I'm probably going to turn that one up a little bit. I've got to re-glue that dust cap. It didn't really affect the sound on that test. Now let's move on to our next category. Okay, so we've got an old 70s KLH woofer. It's not as old as that old Jensen that I showed you, because we're on the other side. That's where it is. So let's test this old KLH 8-inch. It's a woofer now. Oh, why do I have the wire there? Hahaha. That's about the maximum I would turn that up. It's got some pretty good bass, but it does have a limit. So this is a realistic woofer, and it's from the realistic Nova 5 speaker. It's got the lattice grill on the front. This speaker is from my intro video and some of my newer videos. Has got a new foam surround on it. Let's test it. That one is impressive for its age, being from the 80s, and for the size of the magnet. I mean, this speaker is light, but I can literally move it until the cone bottoms out, hits the bottom of the magnet, and have it not even get, and have it not blow out, and not even struggle in the process. Let's move on to this one. It's slightly less old. This one is actually it's way less old. It's from the 2000s, actually. It's a Sony. It's from a very similar size speaker to some of the vintage ones, which is pretty interesting. The SSB 3000. Let's test out this woofer, and I bet you this is going to be pretty similar results to that realistic. I was right. Very similar powerful ability. That's not even a word, to the realistic woofer. And I've actually turned both of them up really loud, and they can both hit their max pretty easily. And they just move a whole ton without even getting hot. And I can tell you that they... this one does make a weird noise sometimes, a little buzzy noise, but it doesn't always do that. Let's move on to our next and last category. So what have we got here? This is pretty interesting. This is actually my smallest, well, not smallest, but my smallest size, because I have a few of them, subwoofer. So this is hardly a subwoofer at all, but this did fit in my subwoofer category because it was fitted in a bandpass box and had all the mids filtered out of it. Now, this is a Bose. It's from an unpowered Acoustimass module. The one next to it is from a powered one. So let's get on to these. That thing packed a punch for its size. Now let's go on to the speaker from the powered Acoustimass. A little bit different. Now, that one honestly has a little bit of distortion. It was a little bit of a disappointment for me at first, but I don't give Bose credit at all for this driver. What I give them credit for is designing the box really, really well. Because I could put on this much power, and that small amount of movement, or maybe a slight bit more, could easily vibrate the windows in my bedroom. It really does not take a lot from this speaker to produce a lot of bass, and the reason for that being is the speaker, the subwoofer unit has a very, very long ported box with a very, very long tubing, and its horn, it's got a horn out the front, so makes it a very, very efficient speaker. Now, what we've got over here, as you can see, it looks quite similar. This is another small home theater subwoofer. This time it's an unpowered one again. And this is a Panasonic one instead of a Bose. Let's see how well this one works. Better than the Bose, that's for sure. So this next one is very interesting for me. It's a Harman Kardon, but it's totally clear. This came in one of those speaker sets, the sound sticks sets. This is the subwoofer from that set. Let's see how this one sounds. A little bit less power that one can take, but still perfect for a computer speaker. So, let's get on to the larger type of subwoofers that aren't from PC speakers and home theater in a box systems. Well, let's be fair. This first one's from a home theater in a box system, but it's from an Onkyo one of the big ones with the wood box that that actually sounded fair, not the best, but fairly good. As you can see, I lost a screw into the pull vent of this one and had to remove the dust cap to get it out, so that's why it looks like that. Let's test this one. Efficient. That was excellent for a speaker that looks broken. This next one doesn't look too much better. It's a Cerwin Vega. It's a car subwoofer instead of a home subwoofer. So it's built with a cast iron frame instead of a more resonant stamped steel frame. It's a heavier speaker. Let's see how this one sounds. That one's got a little bit of a distortion issue just from being old. Although if it was in its box, if it was in a good tuned box, you probably wouldn't be able to hear that distortion, and you could probably set up a pretty good sound system with it, as with that Onkyo. So what we've got here is the last subwoofer and the last speaker of the day. This one right here is a Klipsch. It's from, I guess you could say it's not from a home theater in a box subwoofer. It's from an actual standalone powered subwoofer. This one would honestly be better if I tilted it on its side, because it's got a pull vent on the back. I'm probably going to actually turn up the signal on my receiver first. That's the most power I feel comfortable giving that. That's still quite a bit. If you put that in the subwoofer, if you put that in the actual box, I bet you'd be rattling the windows like crazy and annoying your neighbors at that volume with the subwoofer turned up like that. That's all these speaker drivers. Let me know which ones amazed you the most. And also, let me know which ones you'd like to see in more detail. If I've already shown them, I can give you a link to the video. And if you'd like me to do things with any of these, like build a speaker with a certain combination, as well as a crossover, of course, because every speaker needs one of those, let me know. Especially those Bose ones. I'm using those for home theater, so those Bose ones aren't really going to be tested anytime soon. But if you'd like me to do anything cool with any of the big subwoofers or that guitar amp speaker, let me know about those, and I'll be sure to let you know and maybe make a video about it. So, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and see you in my next video.